So I've gotten into some very heated arguments over this subject, but I decided to go ahead and make a video about it anyway. We'll see how it goes. One thing I absolutely refuse to do in my homeschool is use secular books. I have a good reason for it. I typically do not compromise on this issue, and I will give you the one exception to that rule here in my video. But in a general sense, no, we will not use secular books, and I'm going to give you a good argument for it from a Christian's perspective and from somebody who's been in the system as a teacher. Make sure that you hit the like and the subscribe button, and down below in the description box I have links to curriculum and all kinds of cool things down there just in case you need it. So when we're talking about curriculum, and this is what I'm talking about here, I'm not talking about like novels, although our novels and things like that are heavily monitored. I typically personally don't even read much literature outside classics and Christian literature. I will probably make a video on that in the future, but I want to get the basics out here about the textbooks for now. So I am so hard-lined on this issue that I have actually dropped curriculum companies that I personally enjoyed because they were using too many secular sources, and it was confusing my kids because they were getting two different worldviews, and they were old enough to see that they were getting two different worldviews within one curriculum, and they were like, wait a minute, but this book isn't even refuting it. So it can be a very hard thing to navigate, and you know, that's why I try really hard on my channel to give you good Christian sources for curriculum. Generations is one of my favorite. Generations has solid Christian curriculum, and that's why we typically go to them first. But I stay within the realm of textbook companies that I know share the same worldview. Worldview is the first thing that I look at, especially these days when I look at a curriculum company. With the explosion of homeschooling, especially since 2020, 2020 is when homeschooling like started doubling in numbers, more and more curriculum companies have been popping up. Now, of course, it's a supply and demand issue. However, with more secular people starting to homeschool, we're seeing more secular companies crop up. And not to mention, there's going to be companies that maybe even in the Christian world that we need to check their worldview. Just because a curriculum company says that they are a Christian company does not mean that they have a Christian worldview. And I have learned that firsthand. And you know, sometimes it's after I bought the curriculum, and sometimes it's after a lot of research. But if you do your research, you do your due diligence as a parent, you will find curriculum that aligns with your Christian worldview. It's out there, you just have to find it. So I cannot stress highly enough that worldview matters. It might be the thing that matters the most in that book, because whatever the writer's worldview is, it's going to bleed into everything. And yes, even math. I have seen it in math. Whatever the worldview is will come out in math. Yes, math has word problems. Remember, it's not just numbers. So I need you to remember that, especially if you were a new homeschooler and you're wanting to give your kids a Christian education. Worldview is going to be the most important thing that you need to look at. I typically stay within a couple different companies because of that, because I know their worldview. So get familiar with those companies. And I want to mention that neutral education is a myth. I have a video on my channel titled Neutral Education is a Myth, and you can go in there and see all of the stuff that we have been taught over the years about how education is just a neutral thing. There is no, you know, bias in education. Oh, yes, there is. I speak as not somebody who is just a mom. I speak as somebody who went to college for education. I speak as somebody who taught in a classroom for 9 years. I say this as somebody who has looked at curriculum books since the 90s. It's been that long. It really has. And I have seen the shift happen. Like, I watched it happen in real time, not just in my classroom, but you know, even going through with my own kids, I saw this happen in the classroom that my oldest child was in and the classroom I was teaching in. And I don't say this to rile people up in the comments. I say this to warn parents who have no idea what they might be getting into by just going up and picking up, you know, one of those DK books, and they're like, whoa, wait a minute. Because things are in these books that you don't even realize until you open them up. In a public school setting, typically the bias of the teacher is always going to come out when they are teaching the information. It's the same in a textbook. The bias and worldview of the writer of that textbook is going to come out and bleed into every single page in that book. I highly recommend that you go check out that video if you are brand new to this whole like education is not neutral type of idea, and then do some research. You will be shocked at some of the things that you will find. So it is really good to find those good, solid Christian companies that you align with. For us, we love Apologia for Science. We love Generations for Science, Literature, Bible, History. But it took a while to get here. It took a little bit of trial and error, and I feel like I'm in a good spot now for all the curriculum companies that we have. So what I was finding, and what kind of set me on this path, was a couple of years ago when we were using a different company. They were using secular books within their curriculum. They would have a main textbook, and then they would have you use additional books. And those books were secular. And I didn't realize it when I purchased it because I was unfamiliar with the publisher. So I get these books, they look really cool, and then we start using them and opening them up. And my youngest especially, he was the one who was using some of the ones that it was just like really, really in your face and blatant. And he was like, whoa, wait a minute, Mom, this is not right. And he, you know, he would show me these things, and it was hard for him because he was a lot younger at that point, and it was confusing for him because he had one book telling him one thing and another book telling him something completely different. And, you know, for us as parents, we want to make sure that we're being consistent and we're giving them evidence for our beliefs, and, you know, we're giving them that scripture behind what we believe. And if we do that and then we give them a secular book and say, go read this, have fun, that's going to be really confusing for them. And we don't want that. We want to make sure that we're giving them books to help them understand, not books to confuse them. And I feel like a lot of those companies are confusing these kids, especially the younger ones. And especially if parents are not doing the curriculum with the kids, they might not even catch it. So for any of those naysayers who say, oh, well, you don't even teach your children the opposite view. Oh, yes, I do. And Christian textbooks will actually teach them that too. They absolutely know what humanism is. They know what Darwinism is. They know who all the philosophers are. My oldest is studying them right now. He finds it fascinating. And R.C. Sproul's class is doing a great job of dismantling each and every one of them and explaining the biblical worldview to them through the lens of these people. Before people jump all over me and say that, oh, well, you don't even teach your kids the opposite view. How can they even form their own opinions? Listen, we absolutely teach them the opposite view. And the reason why is because you can't refute an idea unless you know what that idea actually is. So they probably know what Darwinism is better than you do or your own kids. Trust me. They can argue with the best of them, and they have before. So yes, we absolutely teach them those ideas, and we teach them the biblical worldview. And, you know, it's the same thing as in any other, you know, school of thought. You know, we teach all sides, but we show them the truth. So, and I do want to reiterate too that Christian textbooks also will teach them these ideas as well. My kids have learned about Darwinism since they were like 8 from Apologia Science textbooks. Yes, they absolutely know what these ideas are. They know how to refute them, and they know what the truth is, which is exactly what you want as a Christian parent. So If you actually listened to that, congratulations, you made it up to the point where most people wouldn't have in the video and they just would have started screaming at me in the comments. So congratulations, you are my favorite kind of people. So that is my video. And I might have to limit the comments, that's okay. It's not for those people, it's for you guys who are my audience, who are my friends on here, who are my brothers and sisters in Christ, and that's who I make these videos for. So if you see some nonsense down there in the comments, don't even worry about it, I'll take care of it. But this is such a close issue to my heart. I am a book nerd, I am a literary lover, and, you know, things that I find in textbooks, you know, are something, I feel like parents don't read books as much as they probably should as a whole. I'm not saying you personally, I'm saying just as a whole, we as parents don't read the material as much as we should. We don't read our children's books as much as we should because, you know, there's just time constraints and we're all busy. So, you know, as somebody who just loves to read this type of stuff and who wanted to be a curriculum developer, I did. I wanted to be a curriculum developer. I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be a children's author. When I was young, I still do. It's like this pipe dream that I have in my head. That'll probably never ever happen, but you know, I don't think anything would make my heart happier than to have a book with my name on it as the author. That would just make me so happy. But those issues are just so close to my heart, and giving kids good resources that teach them the truth of Christ and help the next generation of Christians grow up in this world is such an important thing to me. And to be able to help you do that with your own kids is really special to me. So thank you for being here. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. I hope that you guys were able to take something away from this, and check your books. Check the books that come in inside your curriculum. And if you're not reading those books, take a peek in them and see what's inside. I'll see you guys next time. I hope you have a great rest of your day and happy homeschooling.